call the meeting to order. And the first item of business is the approval of the agenda.
Second.
What'd you say, Bill?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Public comment on matters not on the agenda. I have Kim McDonald would like to talk on this, referring to the January minutes.
In January, Ms. Kirshner came up and gave a presentation from the Army Corps of Engineers and brought up 2 or 3 things that I hadn't heard of before, one of which being a plan for a diversion into the bypass and the enlarging of the bypass to take some of the water out of the Sacramento River actually before it reaches the levees that are in our area. And I see that the need is for that because they're having problems with the levees directly across from us on the Sacramento side not meeting the flood protection. I'm very curious as to the fact that that will change all downriver flows and stuff as far as the 200-year flood plan. And if that's going to give all those benefits to the Sacramento side, why are we rushing this project before we find out whether or not that will also give us benefits so that we don't have to do quite a large and as expensive project on our side, that maybe we can go with the shorter wall in the levee, leaving the levee in place and just doing some fix-it-in-place projects. And as Mr. Kirchhoff said, if they're going to be changing the flow on the deep water channel side now, we'll be needing to put some money into those levees if they're going to increase the flow over there. I can't see the logic of planning for one thing, one huge thing that might happen, when somebody else is already maybe going to solve the problem in another way for all the downriver levees. I did try to talk to Ms. Kirshner. She passed me off to her assistant who was here, who then passed me off to a public relations person and got back to me with none of the questions. So I thought if they would get back to you, I would appreciate finding out if there is one long-range plan that's going to improve all the levees downriver. Why can't we all get on that and reduce what we have to do and our expenses? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's be sure we follow up on that, okay? Okay, no other requests to talk. So approval of the February the 14th minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the 14th minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Review of the monthly year-to-date revenue and expenses.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This cash flow report summarizes receipts and expenditures for the month of 2013 January. On the revenue side, the agency received the first installment of the assessment revenue at $1.9 million approximately. On the expenditure side, the agency expended approximately $1.1 million. Most of that was in the Southport project at $953,000. And I mentioned last month that there was an entry on the CHP project that would be backed out this month. And it did back out. It was related to moving a retention payment around for Tiker Construction on the construction. And so you saw negative expenses in that project, but it's basically an in and out payment that was just accounting. There was no state reimbursement revenue received for the period, and the cash flow position for the agency at the end of January was approximately $8.4 million. On the report format, you'll notice this month that we've gotten far enough into a year and we've decided to report every month so you can see the full year's cash flow reports and do some analysis. So next month we'll be moving to a larger format on 11 by 17 paper so you can see the whole things together in one report rather than these multiple pages that you got this month, but we needed to talk with staff to make it easier to read and understand what's going on. And that concludes the report for this month. I'll take any questions.
Questions?
No? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Consideration of the Regional Flood Management Grant.
Good morning, Chairman Denton, members of the board. Under some normal circumstances, these agenda items may come under a consent item. However, given that we haven't dealt with many grant-funded programs before the board, we thought we'd bring you a regularly agendized item. First and foremost, the board gave permission to the team to apply for grant funding for the Regional Flood Planning Management Plan. As you know, we've WSAFCA is collaborating with SAFCA in this process, and we've defined a geographic region which is now known as the Lower Sacramento North Delta Regional Flood Management Plan area. We are asking that you make an appropriation, that you allow an appropriation for $1.8 million. The purpose of that appropriation is to make sure that we can pay our consultants and contractors who are working on this project during the over the course of the next 14 months. All of that money, or excuse me, $1.5 million is what we received in a commitment letter from the Department of Water Resources. We're anticipating an agreement, a funding agreement, to be coming forward for Ken Ruse's signature in the near future. In addition, the reason that we're asking for $1.8 million is because in previous approvals by the board for regional planning, both HDR received a $45,000 allocation, MBK had budgeted $150,000. Most of that money was used in the preparation of putting together this grant agreement, working with SAFCA and a number of stakeholders throughout the entire region. So this way, all of those funds that are going to be paying for regional floodplain management will be in a consolidated accounting or a budget account. That's the purpose of asking for the $1.8 million. It still doesn't, so if you add up 1.5 plus another 100,000 plus another 150,000 plus another 45,000, there's still a little bit more room in there. We're asking for that additional appropriation because we anticipate that the grant agreement will be slightly modified with the addition of some work that's going to be provided for Yolo County to be a full participant in the regional planning process. So that's our request this morning. If you have any questions, I'm available to respond to those.
All of this money is coming out of a bond issue that was approved for the state of California.
Well, not all of it. 1.5 million is coming directly from the Department of Water Resources in the form of a grant, and it is all completely reimbursable. However, there was pre-planning work that went into the putting together the grant application and coordinating all those efforts to make that happen. That sums to approximately $200,000 that comes out of our funds.
SAFCA's funds?
That's right. You had previously approved those through some other contracts.
Yeah. Now, since we're working with SAFCA, is SAFCA paying half of that then?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
That's what I thought.
Forgot to mention that. But
Okay.
also through that agreement.
That's important.
Yeah, it is important.
That's important.
So out of those, of the approximately $140,000+ SAFCA will cost share, will reimburse West SAFCA 50% of those funds. We're working through an invoicing procedure to deal with that presently.
And when YOLO comes on board, will they be a participant in getting money back to WSAFCA?
I don't think that's how it's structured. The additional money is to help Yolo County figure out how its governance works and how it's going to interrelate with, interface and interrelate all of the various reclamation districts relative to the what they do presently, as well as in relationship to regional planning.
And then what budgetary fund will this, evidently we're going to get the money up front, and then we'll pay it as we go along. So what fund does this monies, do these grant monies go into?
It'll go into the same, so as we, so once the appropriations are put into the account, as we invoice the state, those monies will come back to replenish the treasury, that part that we use to pay out the money.
And so as we get one of these, the budget account that we have, all these different monies are in separate, are in different accounts.
This will also be tracked separately.
All tracked separately?
Yes, sir.
And this, will it be tracked separately out of Fund 870?
More than likely, Nitish will sequester the money from the grant into a
I
separate.
don't like that word sequester at all.
Oh, okay. We'll park the money in a fund for gap purposes. For example, if you look on the first page of the monthly financial report, you see that summary with the two state funds.
Correct.
Nitish has 257.99.16 for the design funding agreement and 99.17 for the construction funding agreement. I suspect he'll create another fund to park that money, and then you'll see transfers from that fund into WSAFCA's Fund 870. Okay. So it'll be clear. You'll see it as a line item, and I can break it out into more detail if you'd like to see that too as it comes back.
Well, I think that'll be sufficient unless it gets so complicated I can't follow it, and then I'll ask for it.
Okay.
Especially with me.
I still don't understand how Yolo County is going to be paying their share.
Yolo County was not asked to put money forward for the purpose of the applying for the grant funds.
But funding agreement modified to include an additional $100,000 for Yolo County.
Right, so we're anticipating that modification coming forward. It's not in the current grant agreement.
So eventually, we're not going to, what I'm trying to get around to is, we're not going to be funding Yolo County to do their.
WSAFCA is not. The Department of Water Resources has agreed that Yolo County needs additional money for the governance, and so they've agreed to modify our regional plan and budget so that Yolo County's efforts regarding for the work they're going to do in this organizational analysis would be reimbursed through the grant program. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. I guess what we need here is a motion to.
Yeah, I'd move that we authorize the appropriation of 1.8 to the Regional Flood Management Plan account to pay for grant application efforts and grant funding activities.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
So again, this second item, item 6 on your agenda, is a related item. This, in fact, so the grant, the way that the budget is put together, identifies 4 distinct consulting entities, WSAFCA, as well as Yolo County, as being recipients of some of the grant funds. HDR Engineering and MBK are providing strong organizational support. They'll be working with the various subcommittees, making presentations throughout the region to elected officials, to focus groups, to nonprofit organizations, et cetera, to discuss what are the current problems that we see in terms of the levees, in terms of the levee systems, and then all of that information will be synthesized in terms of our problem statement. From that, we will also then go back and speak with them about what might be some remedies, some solutions, or some other system-wide improvements that may be considered as we put together the regional plan for Lower Sacramento North Delta. There's a lot of overlap between what HDR and MBK will be doing. HDR plays a bit more of a technical aspect in terms of system solutions. HDR is playing a strong, as well as a making sure that the product delivery schedule is kept on task. MBK plays more of somewhat more of an organizational, provides more of an organizational foundation. They have many more contacts throughout the region. And so they'll be working with the entire team to make sure that that we're guiding and proceeding in the proper direction to get the deliverables that DWR is requested to this grant program. The grant amounts are both around $500,000 each. This will be for about 14 months of work. Work has already commenced and is off and running, and their first presentation is going to happen in Rio Vista in the next 2 weeks, I believe. So if you have any questions about their contracts or about the contract amounts, I'm here to.
No, I don't.
No, I really don't, except that as I look through some of the maps and everything, and we go to, how is the Delta North region, how are they contributing? How's the communities of Walnut Grove, Hood, Clarksburg, whatever it may be, how are they contributing to the overall plan? Or is that strictly coming from Department of Water Resources?
No, in fact, there's a large coordinating committee that's meeting on a regular basis. We use the subcontract. We use Kearns West and Crocker for outreach, and so they send out. There's a massive email mailing. I can't to make sure that they are aware of what's going on, that they get invited to meetings. A website is being developed, and then they will get links to the website. We are proposing to post all meeting minutes from all the subcommittee meetings, their focus meetings, as well as meetings with specialized groups that have that are considered stakeholders in this process, so that everybody has an opportunity to review and provide input through the website.
Any reimbursements for HDR and MBK services? Are they subject to us receiving this grant money that's been promised to us?
The commitment letter, well, we're working, yes, so the commitment letter sets
I don't want a cash flow issue.
Understood. That's why we got the appropriation up front. So the appropriation allows us, if you will, to have a no-interest loan from the Treasury, the city's Treasury. But as the grant funds come, as MBK and HDR bill us, we pay them, we bill DWR, the money flows back in, and it settles the Treasury.
The letter that we got from the Corps, Department of Water Resources, the letter we got from them,
The commitment letter?
January 29th, 2013.
Yes.
Kind of bothers me the fact that it says the reimbursements will be paid, only after the funding agreement is approved. Don't we have a funding agreement with them right now?
This will be a new funding agreement specifically for regional planning.
Projects we do, but not for this.
No, I was just worried about the lag time. I think you've addressed it, but I mean, I was just a little worried about it.
It's not uncommon for us to have, when we have a grant-funded program, and it's a reimbursable program. We don't get to hold all the money up front. We can't pre-bill. That we have some lag in terms of, and so it does have an effect on cash flow, which is why we use the appropriation to make sure that we can pay everybody on a timely basis.
No.
That's it. Thank you very much. project updates.
Were we supposed to approve this?
You want to approve that?
Yeah, yeah.
I think you
Well, I
better.
didn't want to do that. Okay. So, I need a motion to approve the Regional Flood Management Plan.
Well, I'd move that we approve the contracts with HDR Engineering and MBK Engineering to support the Regional Flood Management Plan.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
You know, Paul, I would like to, on that lag time issue, I'd like to make sure that we really pay close attention to that, because I think Tom's absolutely right, you know, I mean, it's, get into these lag time things, and I mean, and there's got to be a level of trust with DWR and our partners. There's got to be that level of trust, but at the same time, if we just sort of flag it a little bit, and if some things start to get further and further lagging in time as far as our reimbursements to us, so that we can make sure that our contractors are made whole, and we certainly do that, and quite frankly, we, in essence, do it up front. And yet, at the same time, we're expecting these monies. So if we could just somehow or another tag it, frag, you know, whatever we want to do, so that just raise my comfort level that we're getting paid. Okay.
So let me add a couple of things. Mark and I work collectively on this when it comes to the invoicing. So we are requesting all the consultants to provide us with monthly invoices. We will get reimbursements. We're going to look to reimbursements on a quarterly basis. And then once we have the funding agreement in place, because this, I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
We'll make sure that that gets put into the flood progress report, so that you know that it's there. And then the cash flow, the cash flow analysis at the beginning of the board meeting will always depict what's going on with regional planning.
Because we pay monthly and we get reimbursed quarterly.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, so. Yeah, we don't let it lag.
It's certainly
too
lagged.
much. Okay.
It's certainly lagged, but it will not affect the WSAFCA coffers directly.
I understand, yeah, thank you.
Item number 7, the project updates.
Chairman Den, members of the board, just a few items to go over or to call attention to. With the Southport project, last week there was a live edit meeting held with the Corps and WSAFCA staff consultants to facilitate comments and response to comments with the Corps on the latest draft of the EIS-EIR. There is now a supplemental public scoping meeting that's scheduled March 28th, and that's a rescoping meeting for the environmental document that's needed primarily due to minor changes in the project scope for the additional sources of borrow material. The 4th admin draft is scheduled to go back to the Corps on March 29th. We're looking at coming back to the board in April with the 65% design and cost opinion. And then the BOSC, Board of Senior Consultants, review and meeting are scheduled for March 26th and March 27th in support of the 65% design. With regards to the general reevaluation report, the decision to combine the GRRs or not to combine the GRRs has not been made yet. We are still in discussions with Corps, with SAFCA, and with the DWR. We have scheduled an executive level meeting with Corps leadership, with SAFCA, and DWR to discuss these issues, how they will work together, and the plan to move these projects forward. Also, with regards to the GRR, our locally preferred plan is something that we're working on now. It's required to be submitted to the Corps as part of the GRR. So we're going to be developing that locally preferred plan over the next couple of months. We're bringing something back to the board for you to consider. So look for that in the near future. And
Greg,
then,
Greg,
yep.
let me interrupt you as far as the GRR, and I'm sorry for that, but
okay.
How's the sequester going to work? I mean, we have been pushing and pushing and pushing to make sure that that GRR is on time. Promises, or, well, I don't want to say promises. I guess I will. Promises were made, and I'm really, really concerned that, you know, you take 5% of the workforce out or 10%, whatever it might be, for a certain period of time, and things have a tendency to stall. Things have a tendency to start to lag. And how are we keeping on track with that? Or are we talking to the Corps about that? Or what are we doing? Because the GRR is so important to us.
Yeah, so we are talking to the Corps about that. Indications right now from the Corps is that they will be implementing furloughs. But one of the reasons for the executive level meeting is to stay on top of the schedule and request Corps leadership to keep the pressure on staff to continue to move this forward. Colonel Leedy has stated that there will be no slips in schedule through this process, sequestration or no sequestration, and that we will make our schedules. The Corps is well aware of our schedule for the draft report this year so that we can apply for crediting for our Southport project. That is not lost on anybody, and we continue to send that message and move it forward.
Okay. All I can ask. Yes.
And then lastly, I just wanted to give you a brief update on where we are with the flood protection manager recruitment. We've completed the interviews, both panel and department interviews. We have made a tentative offer to the top candidate, and we are working through that process now, and hope at the next meeting we'll be introducing our new flood protection manager.
Outstanding. Very good.
And that's all I had for program updates, unless you guys have any questions.
Nope, no questions, no.
No, not this time.
No questions. Thank you very much. No questions, so the meeting's adjourned.